Mrs. Peach, Thrifty Living. I'm so happy you're here today. Today is another story time. Dad's family, 18 children. He was number 4. There was one mama and one daddy. And my cousin put together a book, genealogy, and they had a story written of each one. And some of them are longer, some of them are shorter. And so we are on number 15 today, the 15th child. And I'm going to be telling you about her. And depending on how much time I have, whether I get finished with the last 3. But I have another 1 or 2 in this series I think you will enjoy. And I will put a number on this because I need to look back to see which number. This is going to be a little insert from before. You can see I don't have everything set up quite the same, but I didn't find this paper at first. It was out of order in my book. This was Vivian Aline. This is the one that was, my cousin's name is Vivian and my middle name is Aline. So she was born in January of 1928. Aline, and they've got it spelled 2 different ways in this page, so I don't know exactly. The first spelling was the way I spell mine. She was one of Melvin, that's one of the older sister's, favorites. She remembers her as being a little, petite, and white-headed. Melvin used to love to brush her hair and comb her hair. The day Aline died, she remembers them getting ready to go to school, and the ambulance came and took Aline. Aline sat up and looked out the window and waved to everyone until they could no longer see her. She died of a blocked intestine in 1937, so she was, 9? And is buried at the cemetery, the local cemetery, everyone else. Aline used to walk in her sleep. There was nights in the summer when they would sleep on the porch, and one of the kids would wake up and find her gone. They would go looking for her, and many times finding her at the spring house, cup in hand, sound asleep. Red, that was Uncle Raymond, he was the one, I think, just before her, remembers Aline as being a small, frail, and quiet girl. Madge, one of the older sisters, remembers Aline as quick, fast child. She could run rings around the other children, yet at times when she first got out of bed, she would pass out. Wow. She was anemic. She also remembers Aline was a fast learner and very bright. And that's what I have about Vivian Aline. Now, this is going to look different on the next scene because I had the background different. My next one is number 16, my Aunt Mary. Her name was Mary Ellen. She was born in 1929. She married in 1944 to Thomas Void, and they had 4 children. Mary was also born at home with Mrs. Collins in attendance. Mary was named after her grandmother, Mary Ellen. She remembers her as being a dark-complected lady and always fixing her something to eat. They like the food. She remembers one time being out in the yard. She had done something she wasn't supposed to have done, and her mom was going to give her a whipping with a switch. But Mary didn't want this, so she ran from her mother. Charlie is the one that caught her, that's the daddy, and he gave her 3 good licks with the switch. I guess you couldn't do that these days. Well, depending on who you are. She did not see growing up in a large family as a disadvantage, for she feels her father provided well for the family. Her mother And Madge, that was one of the older sisters, made lots of clothes that the children wore. She remembers them having prayer meetings in their home and cousins coming from all over and staying there. There was always room for one more in that family. Sometimes when they had prayer meetings, the boys were allowed to invite one person each. And they would get a cart and take it up by the pump house, load it with the children, and let the brakes off, and they would go rolling down the hill in the cart. Mary and Lois, now that's another one that I will be telling you about. She's not born as of yet in this story. Remembers playing house outside. They would gather up rocks and make their various rooms in their house and furniture. Stacking rocks to make a stove and other pieces of furniture. I did the same thing many years later out in the yard. Maybe not rocks, sticks maybe. As chores, she had to carry water and help heat the water on the stove. She had to help bring the cow in. If you called the cows, they would come to you. She remembers a man by the name of John living with them who helped around the house. And Luke, who helped with the store. Luke would always bring the children candy home, where their dad didn't always remember to do so. To Mary, Grandfather Mac was not a tall man. I think other people have said that. And a little on the heavy side. He would usually stay in the background. Grandfather Davis was a tall man. He was also shaky. She remembers him sitting on the porch, drinking his coffee and shaking. I think we had another story about that. Mary remembers Austin. Remember, he's the one that got in a lot of trouble as a young man, as being kind and good-hearted. When he came home from CC camp, she didn't know he was her brother. She thought he was an uncle. She remembers her mom baking. Mary also remembers waking up during the middle of the night and hearing her mother praying. She slept in the front room with her parents. Her dad would get up early, and Mary and Lois would get up with him, climb on his lap, and he would sit and laugh and play with them. Mary did not like seeing her dad cause her mother to be upset. She remembers playing games like Annie Over and hide and go seek. I think I'm missing a little piece of this paper, and I don't know what I'm missing. They played outside quite a bit. They used to go down to the creek swimming. She remembers one time going to spend the night with her grandmother Davis and not coming home when she was supposed to. They must have been really close. She was to be home in the morning and didn't get home until evening time. She knew she was going to get a whipping for that. So when she got home, she crawled under the porch and hid. When they went to school in the winter, they had a hill to climb. This hill had snow or ice, so Albert, that's one of the brothers that I've told you about, would go to the bottom of the hill and put her on his back and carry her up the hill. Mary liked math and spelling and writing in school. Mary got married when she was 15. Wow. Void lived across from her. When she first met him, she didn't like him because he was always getting in trouble. But things changed. Before he went into the service, they had been talking about getting married. So when he went into the service, they decided to go ahead and get married. Her father saw that her mind was made up, so he took her to Sallisaw to sign and give the permission for her to get married. She remembers her father performing the wedding ceremony for other people. People would come up to the house on horseback or would walk up barefooted and want to get married, so he would perform the ceremony in the front yard. Mary feels her mother was the biggest influence on her life. Aunt Mary was a sweet, sweet lady. She lived, well, till not too many years ago. And when we would go back to Oklahoma, she lived there, and she made the best food. Oh, my goodness. Her pies, really wonderful. My next story is about Lois. She was number 17, next to the last one. Lois Fay was born in 1931. She married Frank. They had 7 children, and then her second husband, Joe, she married, and she had 1 child. Now, I don't know if these numbers are quite right. I thought she had 10 children. I'm just reading this, okay? Lois was born at home with Doc Fulton there. She remembers getting whippings only from her mother if she did something wrong. She remembers Madge, remember she was the older sister, as being the one that made sure she minded her mom. Madge would take her aside and talk to her. She thought it was a privilege to grow up in a large family. There was lots of love there. Grandfather Mac is remembered as a short person who always was being there for them, and he was a very quiet person. It was nice having him around. Lois remembers one time her mother wanting to go to town with her father in the pickup, and couldn't because she had too many other people going at the time. This hurt her mom, and her mom cried, causing Lois to be upset. She also remembers that her father promised to put water in the house for her, but didn't, and this made her mother sad. Remembers Arthur. Now he was one of the oldest, near the top of the brothers, as being a good person and a Christian. Remembers her dad getting up early in the morning and lighting the fire in the fireplace and letting the place get warmed up before he would wake up their mother. Then he would go out to the smokehouse and get a ham to fix for breakfast. Lois thought that every time the doctor came, he brought a baby. She remembers making flowers out of crepe paper and wire and taking them to the grave on Decoration Day. They had an old Dodge cattle truck that they used for transportation. When they went to town, they would take the backboard off the truck because everyone on the Black Gum Mountain could crowd into the truck, and they would go to town. Sunday was spent going to Sunday school. Then they would have a great big dinner, and the kids would play games outside. Some of Lois's favorite foods was fried chicken and fried potatoes and blackberry cobbler. Lula and Charlie were a happy couple and very caring of each other. Lula was a very strong and religious person. Lois feels her dad was thought of as very high quality. He was good preacher and a very busy man. He was involved in civic affairs. When she would go to spend the night with Grandma Davis, Grandma would make Lois big fat butter beans for her to eat. They lived over near where another uncle lived. Lois remembers helping with the garden and her bantam chickens, which would fight. That is Aunt Lois, and if I'm not mistaken, she had 10 children, and they have a wonderful family. I have one more, and this will be the last of the children. I found another article of the family that I think will be very interesting to you. I will have it for next time. This is the very last one. His name was Jack. Jack Cletus was his middle name. He was born in 1934. He married in 1952 to Mary. They had 2 children, and then his second wife was Marie, who he married in 1967 and then got a divorce in 1978, and they had no children. Being the last one born of the family, Jack doesn't feel there was any disadvantages from coming from a large family. Some of the chores Jack had to do as a child was to gather wood and help milk the cows as he got older. Being the baby of the family, Jack wasn't treated any different than any of the others of the family. He was expected to do his share of chores. He remembers his mother as being as short and heavy, and his father as being tall and thin. Sunday was spent in Sunday school. Jack became a Christian when he was 22. Jack's favorite food was cake and pies. Boy, he must be kin to me. After his mother passed away, Jack went to live with Miriam and Nell. That's Miriam was one of the oldest brothers. That is all the stories. I will have another one. And, you know, every year we go back for our family reunion. And I don't know if I'm going to show this. I'm going to hold it up here a little bit. Let's see if... Some of the families had big families. And Aunt Lois, I believe she had 10. And I don't know why this said that. But I will be coming back with another story. It won't be of the children, and I think you'll enjoy it. And if you haven't heard this story, go back and start at number 1. I have them listed in a playlist, and you can watch each one, and I would appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed, and you would, please subscribe and press like, and then share it if you know somebody that would like it. And most of all, if you've noticed in all of these stories, my family were Christians. My grandpa was a preacher to go along with a lot of other things in his life. And my grandma was a praying lady, and that's what I still want to be, is one that serves God. And I pray my children will, and grandchildren on down the line will continue to love and serve Jesus. And I'm looking forward to the time Jesus comes. You know, he's going to be coming before long, and I want to be ready, and I want to see you in heaven too. God bless you today. Come back next time. This is not just a one. I have all kinds of subjects here. I have cooking, sewing, grocery hauls, a glimpse of my life. That's my life story, and I appreciate it. God bless you.